Previously on Crime 101.
You don't have enough to make this stick, and I think you know that.
Don't the rules also ask whether the public interest requires a prosecution?
Controversy continues as the trial of popular real estate agent Neil Fox is about to commence.
Jury selection takes place tomorrow, and it may be the most important part of the trial, given the defendant's public profile.
Finally, keep an open mind as the case progresses.
Shouldn't be too hard for them. Their minds are pretty vacant already.
Is the prosecution quite ready?
Yes, Your Honour. Sorry. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, have you ever been out in the Brisbane sun on a crisp autumn day? You know, the ones where the air smells clean and the sky is a clear blue like it could go on forever. Days like that feel full of possibility, don't they? Full of hope. Janine Jenker was only 27 years old on a day just like that. She had recently escaped a bad relationship, changed states, and started a new job, doing something she loved, something she was good at. Janine isn't here to speak to you today because something terrible happened on that perfect day. Heading home from the gym where she worked, she cut down a back alley, a shortcut to where she had parked her bike. The upbeat music from the gym would still have been audible to her. Minutes later, she lay dying on the dirty asphalt of that cold concrete alleyway surrounded by strangers. She had been stabbed to death, murdered by this defendant, Neil Fox. As jury members, you will have to look beyond Mr. Fox's good looks, his current standing in the community, the charities he supports, all the nice things the defence will say about Mr. Fox. It doesn't matter how many nice things people say about Mr. Fox or how many nice things he's ever done, because every nice thing he ever did slipped away the moment he murdered Janine Jenker.
I could see you all listening intently to Mr. Gambaro, imagining yourself or someone you love being stabbed in that alley. I understand your horror. What happened to Miss Jenker was a horrible crime, and whoever did it did a horrible thing. But my client was not that person. My client did not commit this crime. My client is not guilty. I want you to think about a different story here. It's one where you do all the right things, but it still comes tumbling down because you get blamed for something you did not do.
So these defensive wounds to her arm, they aren't what killed Ms. Jenker, are they?
No, sir. The typical adult can lose up to 40% of their blood volume before suffering irreversible shock. The arm wounds would not have been sufficient to cause such a loss, given their depth and location. There were also 3 stab wounds to the neck. One of those resulted in the victim's jugular being severed. That's what caused the hemorrhage and the shock, and in my opinion, that's what caused her death.
So did you attach any importance to the wounds on Janine's arm at all?
Yes. While they were not implicated in the cause of death, they did suggest that the victim had tried to defend herself, that she saw her attacker coming. But the angle of the wounds on the arm suggested that she only raised her arm as she was being attacked.
I'm an older man, so let me just be sure I understand what you've said. The nature of the cuts close in like this indicate that Janine was approached by someone she may initially have found non-threatening, or at least someone who was able to come quite close into her. The defensive wounds on her arm indicate that she fought back. The blood spatter and angle of the knife wounds indicate that the weapon was wielded from this very specific angle, requiring her murderer to have been a certain height, the same height as our defendant.
You have understood correctly, sir, but you forgot the handedness factor. As I stated earlier, my analysis of the wound has led me to generate a conclusive case as to the left-handedness of the attacker.
Did the police investigators ever find the weapon?
No.
Did you ever connect my client to the site?
Well, he was at the site, so yes, of course. We found several traces linking the defendant to the scene of the crime.
Well, of course he was there, as he was trying to help the victim. Because it's deeply rooted in my client's nature to try and help people.
I swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me God.
Could you tell the court how you came to know the defendant?
A couple of years ago, I worked at a place called Pifection in Balmoral. The defendant, he used to come in all the time. He was really chatty, got on with everyone. A couple of the girls and me used to have a bit of fun because he was kind of hot. We used to call him by his regular order, Mr. Steak and Pepper.
But Mr. Steak and Pepper wasn't always that nice, was he, Nora?
No, he wasn't.
Could you tell us a little about that, Nora?
Well, one day, the boss had gone home, I was locking up. The girls had gone, I'd finished the final clean-up and I was out the back by the bins. I heard this noise and I turned around and it was him.
The defendant, you mean?
Yeah. And I said something like, "We're closed. Are you still hungry?" And he said, "Yeah." And he smiled. And I smiled back because I didn't know what to do. And with him smiling all funny like that. And then I see his hand and he had a knife and he assaulted me.
Why didn't you go to the police with this?
I don't know. Everyone liked him. I didn't even tell the girls what had happened, you know. They'd talk about Mr. Steak and Pepper and my stomach would turn and I didn't know what to say. Not long after that, I just quit. Maybe if I'd said something.
You allege that this assault took place over 2 years ago. Why did you decide to come forward now?
I saw him on TV and I couldn't stop thinking about what had happened to that poor woman, you know.
And what have you been doing since you quit Pifection?
Bit of this, bit of that.
Indeed. Isn't it true that you've been trying to start a new career as an actress and singer?
I don't have the best looks, I know that, but looks don't matter if you've got the voice. Just ask anyone. Look at Susan Boyle.
And how is your career change going for you?
Well, anyone will tell you it's a hard business to break into.
I'm guessing the publicity from this trial couldn't hurt, could it?
Your Honour.
You stand there and you think you're so much better than me because I'm not pretty or rich or thin or famous. Well, let me tell you, that doesn't change the fact that that man hurt me and then he went and killed someone and you are helping him.
Order in the court. Ms. Manchetti. The jury will disregard the witness's last statement.
I tried to run out into the alley, but I couldn't. The door was locked, so I had to go out into the main street.
So, you were never chased down the back alley?
No, the closest I got to the alley was walking over the overpass at the wrong time.
Why did you run at all?
It was the way that man, the defendant, looked at me. He made me feel like prey. So I ran. I panicked.
Isn't it true that you locked that door to stop my client from getting to the bag that you knew you left behind?
No,
The
I
bag
told
you knew that could link you to the crime.
No, the door was already shut.
Isn't it true that your statements to police were frequently contradictory?
Objection, Your Honour. She's badgering the witness.
Sustained.
Why didn't you tell police about the door earlier?
I tried. The copper, he kept interrupting me, like you are now. I'm not good like that. Makes it hard to think straight. But I swear, no one ever chased me, and I never hurt that woman.
Lisa's attack class was going on, and there's this power track in it, and I remember it had just started. I'm a personal trainer, so my mind kind of automatically starts counting out beats to songs that I've used, and that song gets used a lot.
So from this, you estimate how long till you were interrupted by the man with the knife?
About 2 songs. The song before the power song and about 3/4 of the power song, so about 7 to 7.5 minutes.
You've said that when you went out for a smoke, the alley was clear. How long from when you saw the assailant to when you screamed?
I waited a minute before I went out into the alley. I was scared to leave, but I was also scared that he'd come back. And then I could see the body and I was compelled to walk towards it. I screamed when I saw who it was and there was blood, and then I ran into the gym.
I understand. So how long would you say that took?
I'd say about 2 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you very much. A man ran away from this witness's position up the alley. 2 minutes later, she screamed. A crowd formed. A minute later, the defendant appeared at the scene of the crime and knelt at the victim's side. This is clear in the mobile footage you saw earlier and is corroborated by Detective Warren's testimony that the defendant was there when she arrived. 3 minutes in total. I know something about second chances. I know Janine Jenker deserved one, but we'll never know what that might have looked like. Who killed that chance? Based on the evidence, based on what you've heard, Neil Fox did. He murdered Janine Jenker in cold blood. The prosecution has shown you evidence that the defendant, far from being the innocent he portrays himself as, had a history of violence against women, that he had previously used a knife in that assault, that he lied about chasing the witness whom he tried to frame as the perpetrator down that alley. We have shown that, in fact, the door he claimed the witness escaped through was permanently locked, making exit impossible, a fact corroborated by the janitor of that building. You have seen evidence that the defendant was at the scene of the crime, arriving precisely the time it might take someone to run down the alley, circle around the block, and return to the scene of the crime. We've shown that the crime was committed by someone matching the height and handedness of the defendant. Your job as jurors is to do your duty, to find justice for Janine Jenker, a young woman looking for a fresh start, but struck down in her prime. I ask that you find Neil Fox guilty of her murder.
Is the defence ready to close?
Yes, Your Honour. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you've had to hear about a terrible event in this trial. Nobody in this room doubts the heartache and loss that these events on that tragic day have caused. The prosecution has told you that it was my client, Mr. Neil Fox, a respected and well-regarded member of the community, who committed these terrible acts. You've heard the prosecution ask you to look beyond my client's good looks and community standing. I would ask you to do something much more important. I would ask you to look at the evidence. Think carefully about the evidence that the prosecution presented. As you saw, the prosecution called a number of witnesses who all said that Mr. Neil Fox committed a most terrible crime. I ask you to think about what each of these witnesses told you. It's up to the prosecution to convince you that my client committed this crime. You heard from a witness who apparently saw my client committing the crime. But this is the same witness who also confessed to the crime. A second eyewitness also testified, but she was the one that earlier picked the wrong person from a lineup. You also heard from a forensic expert, but he was only able to tell you that my client was at the scene. Of course, Mr. Fox does not deny being at the scene of the crime, as he was one of the first people there trying to save Ms. Jenker. No reasonable person would be convinced by this so-called evidence. And I can tell by looking at you, you're all reasonable members of the community. It's time now to put an end to this bungled investigation and prosecution. It's time for the police to find out who really did commit this crime. It's time for you to find my client not guilty so that he may go home.